Well, good morning and welcome. Thank you, everybody, for taking some time this morning to spend with us here at the Ohio Department of Development. My name is Patrick Smith. I'm the Chief of the Community Services Division here at the Department of Development. On behalf of Director Mahalik, it is my privilege to welcome you to today's webinar on the Residential Economic Development District Grant Program. Excited for this new program and the opportunity to launch it today with all of you and share a little more information on it and background on what we're going to be looking at and what this opportunity presents. Really is a great opportunity for counties, townships, municipal corporations near major economic development projects to pursue additional housing to support, those folks that are going to be working those jobs for these exciting projects that have been announced and being worked on. As many of you may be aware, this program was created in the most recent state budget. For this program here, and specifically the opportunity we're talking about today, up to $10 million is available. Next fiscal year, there will be an additional $15 million available, but we're going to focus today on the $10 million available for opportunities for grants. We're looking forward to taking many of your questions. We will work to answer as many questions as we can today. Recognizing this is a brand new program, we're anticipating some great questions and opportunities that we'll work to answer as many as we can today. We will absolutely, as we always do at the department, follow up with an FAQ document, both with in writing answers of the questions we get today, and then anything we don't get today that we believe would be helpful to get additional clarification. This is a program that has gotten a lot of interest. I say that to share with you, I do anticipate a very competitive funding opportunity this time around for many of you around the state that are interested in this opportunity. So please, with that, I share that to say, a strong, clear proposal when you submit it will be important to differentiate the opportunity that you believe your proposal makes possible. So again, thank you for joining us. Excited for this opportunity, excited to be with you all today to share some more information. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Julie Gerald. She's our Deputy Chief for the Office of Housing Support. She's going to take you through all the details, get you into exactly what the legislation, says, the guidelines, the map that we've published to give everybody a good idea where eligible areas are. And then I'll look forward to coming back and joining Julie at the end and doing our best to answer your questions. And then look forward to working with all of you on this exciting program here and the opportunity to add additional housing around these major economic development projects. Julie, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Carrie, I think we're good to start with the next slide. So as Patrick stated, my name is Julie Gerald. I am the Deputy Chief of the Office of Housing Support within the Community Services Division of Development. We are so excited to be able to share the new Residential Economic Development District Grants Program, or REDD, as we lovingly call it, with you, and hope that by the end of this webinar, you are as excited as we are and have gained a great understanding of how our team is going to be administering this program. Next slide. So just a quick overview of what we will be talking about today. First, we're going to introduce the grant funding and its purpose. We're going to go over basic eligibility requirements, explain what the application and scoring process will be, and then at the end, we'll have time for you to ask questions. To do that, as shown on this screen, you're going to click on the Slido button, and then you'll submit your request in writing. We do request that all questions be submitted in this format. Given the high attendance for this webinar, we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can. If you have additional questions you'd like to submit after the webinar has concluded, you can reach out directly to ohs@development.ohio.gov. That email address is also posted on the REDD designated webpage. I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to provide enough information to address any questions you may have during this presentation. To cover the most often asked question, yes, this slide deck and presentation will be made available on the REDD designated webpage soon. All right, kicking it off. Next slide, please. Through House Bill 96, the General Assembly declared its intent to encourage major workforce housing projects in areas of the state that otherwise would not attract such developments and to increase home ownership in Ohio. The result of that was the REDD program that was added to fiscal year's 26-27 state budget. In the budget, development was provided with a total of $25 million for the REDD program. As someone who has lived and breathed affordable housing for the last 20 years and has the most passionate group of individuals on my team, we were beyond excited to read about and then be asked to create and administer this program. Next slide. So as Patrick stated, the REDD program awards grants to counties, townships, or municipal corporations that are fully or partially located within a residential economic development district. There is $10 million in available funding for fiscal year 2026. Our application will open on December 16th, and that application period will close January 16th of 2026. The minimum award amount is $250,000 and the maximum award amount is $2.5 million. We are projecting the grants can begin as soon as February 1st, 2026, and if they do, they will end January 31st of 2027. Next slide. In order to apply for the REDD program, applicants must demonstrate that the intended project is in an eligible area that meets the definition of a major economic development project by providing verification that the project is reasonably expected to create at least 700 new permanent jobs, or by providing information that the project received at least $700 million in private investments that were committed to establish, expand, renovate, or occupy a facility as part of a single project at a designated project site. Next slide. There are some important definitions I would like to review as they outline the eligibility requirements for REDD. The first is the definition of a residential economic development district. To qualify as an eligible district, all parcels of land intended for the development site must be located within a 20-mile radius of a major economic development project. If one of many development site parcels is located outside of that radius, it may not be included in the REDD program grant budget. In the next slide, I'm going to show you what this looks like for Ohio. Next slide. Here at Development, our research team used data provided by Jobs Ohio to note the latitude and longitude markers of each site address and then plotted the projects that met one or both of the qualifications from 2015 through October of 2025. As shown, the qualifying projects are marked and the 20-mile radius is outlined for each. You will see that for each noted project, there is a number assigned. Next slide. Each number on the plotted map represents a project name on this legend. Understanding that this is nearly impossible to read, both of these documents are linked on Development's REDD program's designated webpage. Please note this map and legend are subject to change with any newly identified qualifying projects as defined in the ORC. Next slide. Once it has been established that the intended site is eligible based on the major economic development project requirements, we move on to the second set of requirements. This slide defines the two requirements that must be met and verified in order for your application to be considered. The first, which was previously mentioned by Patrick, is that you have approved or have imminent plans to approve a major workforce housing project. For purposes of this funding, a major workforce housing project has been defined as a project that reserves at least 100 units designed for residential occupancy by at least 100 individuals or families living independent from each other. We do want to note the budget language does allow for documentation or other evidence which proves you have already done or have imminent plans to utilize the allowable budget activities for the development of a major workforce housing project that has already been approved. The second requirement is that you have adopted and implemented or have imminent plans to adopt and implement one or more pro-housing development policies. Those are defined as policies established to identify and remove barriers and allow communities to go beyond their traditional rules and processes to help accelerate housing production. We have defined imminent as approved but not yet enacted. There will be a 90-day deadline imposed on verification of the enacted date from the date of your application submission. Additionally, if you wish to submit what you feel are existing and qualifying pro-housing development policies, those must have been enacted within the last 3 years. Verification of the existing policies' enacted date will be required. A clarifying point for these requirements is, if you are approved for a grant based on imminent plans to adopt and implement pro-housing development policies and approve a major workforce housing project, Development must confirm the follow-through of both plans before we can distribute any funds. Next slide. Patrick touched on this earlier, but we're going to talk in detail about those who can apply for funding. To begin, applications may be submitted individually or jointly. An eligible individual entity is a county, a township, or a municipal corporation that is fully or partially located within a residential economic development district. If an eligible county, township, or municipal corporation wishes to submit a joint application, they may do so with a housing developer, port authority, council of government, regional planning commission, or one or more other county, township, or municipal corporation. However, please note the lead applicant must be the eligible county, township, or municipal corporation. Next slide. The allowable activities under this funding are providing capital for housing development through loans or grants. This means offering financial support to developers to help them build affordable housing. This support can come in the form of loans, which are used to cover the costs such as construction and maintenance, or grants, which are one-time funds that do not need to be repaid. Readying sites for development. Site readying refers to the process of preparing the construction site for building activities and generally includes tasks such as grading, cleaning debris, and installing necessary infrastructure. Providing financial assistance for housing-related infrastructure projects. This includes, but is not limited to, road improvements, broadband installation, or water and or sewer connections. Allowing additional service or public safety needs due to increases in population as a result of a qualifying mega project. If applying for this activity, verification of the need due to an increase in population due to the project must be included with your application. A couple of examples of this activity may be temporarily funding additional security or other emergency personnel, the purchase of stoplights or traffic signs, or the purchase of a fire truck. Funds for this activity are allowed for a one-time use. In other words, you must not plan on long-term funding for any qualifying purchase or service. Next slide. And finally, the allowable costs for administration. This includes salaries and benefits of employees, legal, accounting, or audit services, and the renting or purchasing of office equipment. The expenses associated with this activity are capped at 10% of your award. We emphasize that any administrative costs charged to the grant must be linked only to the grant because many of the services are likely already standard within your industry. If submitting reimbursement requests, it is important that you maintain alternate record-keeping processes to track time spent on tasks associated only with this grant. Our reimbursement process does require verification of the expenditures, so this will allow for an easier submission, which will ultimately lead to a quicker review and approval on our end. Next slide. We will now discuss the application process. As indicated before, the application reviews will be held in 30-day periods. Those received during the applicable period will be reviewed, scored, and funding recommendations will then be made. If funding is still available, another 30-day application review period will begin at the conclusion of the prior period with the same approach for reviewing, scoring, and recommending. This will continue on until all funds have been committed. As a note, if you apply and are not selected for funding in a previous round, you are eligible to reapply in the next application round, pending there are still funds available. All applicants are required to have an OHID, which is Ohio's Digital Identity and Access Management System, and this is necessary for you to submit an application. It provides a single secure login for various state applications and services. Users will receive a unique 8-digit OHID number that serves as the username. Applicants are also required to have or obtain an Ohio Supplier ID, which is essential for grantees to receive payments. Links for obtaining both of these will also be available on the REDD webpage. We do recommend registering for both now to avoid any delays once the application opens, since that information is required. Next slide. This slide outlines the other requirements needed for the application submission. Our IT team has created the application to disallow submission with missing or incomplete data so that we do not experience unnecessary delays with our reviewing and scoring. When completing the application, there will be additional fields populated based on your answers. Anything missing will be highlighted. These requirements include the lead applicant's federal employer ID number, the application type, whether it's individual or joint, the lead applicant's entity name and address, a primary contact name, the project timeline and budget, total requested amount, and any required supporting documentation. Next slide. If awarded, all reimbursement requests must include documentation to support the request. Examples of this could be invoices for completed work, payroll records, receipts for purchases that align with the allowable expenses, etc. You may submit one reimbursement request per month. You will also be required to submit quarterly progress reports with the goal of mirroring the timeline included with your application. The due dates will be 15 calendar days after the previous quarter ends. Additionally, the final performance report will be due within 60 days of the work completion date. Please note the specific dates will be detailed in your grant agreement. The final performance report should be submitted once all activities are completed and all funds have been spent. This will be a non-extendable deadline, and any funds not spent within the grant period should be returned if previously received, but will be canceled. Next slide. Now we're going to review how you can increase your score. Next slide. The budget language included scoring metrics with the possibility of additional points if certain criteria were met. These include having more units per acre with a minimum threshold of at least 2, reducing or having smaller lot sizes starting at 7,500 square feet as the maximum, reducing or having smaller setback requirements starting with 6 feet as the maximum, reducing and having lesser open space requirements starting with 25% of gross acreage as the maximum, lowering or eliminating fees for inspections, planning, impact, or water and sewer tap fee reductions, using both rigid and flexible pavement types, using the funds to conduct traffic studies and thoroughfare plans, and adopting more pro-housing development policies both in quantity and impact. The following slide will show points available per bullet as well as possible additional points. Next slide. This slide represents a portion of the REDD program scoring tool. The budget language details a minimum or maximum threshold for the project questions displayed on this slide, but offers additional points for either falling below or exceeding the provided threshold. When creating the scoring metrics, that guidance was applied. What that means is if your project fails to or just meets the item's indicated threshold, there will be no additional points awarded. If you meet, exceed, or fall below the thresholds as applicable, you will receive the additional points. Using one of the application questions of how many units per acre will be constructed as an example, the budget's threshold is a minimum of 2. Our review for this, for scoring purposes, would be if you respond that you will be constructing 1 to 2 units per acre, you will receive 0 additional points. If you respond that you will construct 3 to 5 units per acre, you will receive 5 additional points. And if you respond that you will construct 6 to 8 units per acre, you will receive 10 additional points. The entire scoring tool will be added to the REDD designated webpage. Next slide. This slide represents examples of pro-housing development policies. The budget language indicates that we will give preference to applicants who adopt more pro-housing development policies. Some examples in that language included increasing the rate at which permits for housing are reviewed, acquiring or making ready sites that are ready to be financed and built upon by developers, reducing or eliminating impact, inspections, and plan review fees for housing developers, adopting a zoning plan that includes promoting higher density, smaller lot sizes, and minimum setback requirements, Having no or minimal parking requirements for developments that include residential units, developing partnerships to expand the provision of sewer and water services to new areas, and promoting the use of non-traditional building structures such as modular or manufactured homes. Please keep in mind, it will be the responsibility of the applicant to demonstrate the validity of each policy in order to be considered. An example of the first bullet would be to provide verification of instances where the rate for reviewing housing permits previously took a certain amount of time, but a newly established policy that aims to reduce it and by how long has been approved or enacted. Next slide. And that is our REDD program in a nutshell. We're now going to open the meeting for any questions.
Good job, Julie. It was a lot. Exciting. Exciting, though.
Thanks, Julie. Well,
Has joined us. Luke, introduce yourself.
Hi. Hello, everybody. My name is Luke Stecke. I'm one of two assistant chiefs here at the Community Services Division of Development, and I will be our master of ceremonies for the Q&A section. Just to get some high-level ones out of the way, Julie mentioned this with Patrick. These questions we will be compiling in an FAQ. Also, the slide deck and this video will be posted on the REDD website. So with that, let's dive in. We have a housing developer interested in building 90 new market homes 24 miles away from a mega site project. Is this viable?
Unfortunately, I will just say, and this is important, and this is one of the pieces in the code, right? It is means all parcels of land within a 20-mile radius of the major economic development project. That 20-mile radius is an important part. That's in the revised code, and one of which we cannot change or interpret differently.
Okay. Will the application close once a certain number of applications or dollar amount of requests are received?
No.
It's right, Julie, open for 30 days, and then if we're able to make, depending on I remember applications and things we receive, if we were able to award the money that's available, then we'll do so. If we aren't able to make awards for the funds that are available, then obviously we'll continue on with additional opportunities for applications on a rolling basis after that.
Are areas located within several eligible REDD districts scored differently?
Read that again slow.
Sure.
And Julie, think about it too.
Are areas located within several REDD districts scored differently? Overlapping districts for a housing development, I would say.
My instinct is, Julian, help me out, and maybe one where there's a site-specific example that I'm not thinking of. But at the end of the day, an application has to show the 100 units are within the 20-mile radius of one of the major economic development projects. So that will be important.
Okay. We're getting a lot of questions around single-family, multifamily, and rental properties. Julie, if you just want to kind of go over eligibility for those different types of housing units.
I mean, essentially, as long as the units constructed are for individual families, I don't believe that there was nothing in the language that precludes anything about it needing to be single family versus multifamily. It's just that the development project in a whole has to contain 100 units for people to live separately from each other.
That's the key phrase, right? They have to, the individuals or families living independently from each other, right? At the end of the day, right? The example I thought of was like, I lived in a dorm where 4 of us had kind of separate rooms, but all one bathroom. That's not living independently from each other, right? It's.
Yep.
No communal spaces.
Well said. Is brownfield remediation considered an eligible activity under readying sites for development?
That's a great question. We might need to dig into that. What do you think, Luke?
I would say as we have a brownfield program, those types of activities would be most appropriate utilizing those program funds.
We can circle back in the FAQ with more specificity. At the end of the day, the eligible cost within the allowable grant here are eligible costs within the grant program, and preparing sites to have them then have 100+ units on them, or is the goal of this specific grant opportunity. So let us circle back on that piece.
So we're getting some questions around the contiguous parcels for development. Can the units be new infill housing totaling throughout the REDD, or must it at least 100 new builds and continuous parcels? So I think do all 100 homes have to be in the same location is what I'm gathering is the question.
And this would go back to, right, all of the 100 units have to be within the 20-mile radius of the project. So it does contemplate the allowability of potentially two sites where 50 are here, or something like that. So I think we'll be curious, or multiple places around a city where you're getting up to 100. The idea here at the end of the day, right, is the additional 100+ units available near an economic development project that needs the additional housing.
How will fractional units per acre be scored? I would assume with the requirements in the code, an applicant would have some type of parcel spacing for a schematic, and as long as it's within the parameters.
Yeah, great question. That may be one we'll follow up. I would ask the person that submitted that question, maybe if you wouldn't mind following up with a little more detail on what you mean by that, and how you would envision that need to be taken into consideration. That would be helpful and appreciated.
Yeah, I will say, like our previous webinars, we will try to stay away from site-specific questions. If you would have those questions, please feel free to reach out to the team, and we can address those. When do awarded funds need to be expended by?
The specific dates will be outlined in the grant agreement, but we do expect that all awarded funds will be spent within 1 year of the award date.
Excellent. Will we be able to see the application portal before it opens?
Not necessarily, but one thing I would stress is this isn't a first come, first serve opportunity, if that makes sense. I know some of you have worked with programs in the past where it's been how quickly you can get in and get your information in. The portal will open and you will have time, right? An application that's submitted minute 1 versus the last minute before that 30-day period will be considered the same. So I think you'll have plenty of opportunity to spend time with that application. I think Julie did a great job in this webinar, and specifically in the slides, really outlining what to expect and the types of questions that if you kind of go back through this, you really have a really good feel of what exactly that application looks like and the questions that you should be prepared to answer. It is really just in a format to be able to literally submit the information.
Does the map provided by the REDD program qualify as the documentation for the mega project, or will the community have to provide additional documentation?
No, there will be no additional documentation required. The moreover is going to be ensuring that the parcels for development are within that 20-mile radius.
Yeah, the hope is, right, you can cite back to the project, right? You're saying this project, and I'm within 20 miles of it. This is exciting thing that's happening. We need 100 more units because of that for all these jobs that are being created as a result of it. So really tying it back, I think, is an important part of this program, though.
We're getting quite a few questions around the 30-day revolving deadline process. The first question is, when will the first deadline be?
Julie, I thought wasn't it in the slide deck when we opened the
application?
application?
I think we just need to review it.
We are opening December 16th and it will close January 16th.
And then also
we tried to give you all some time, right? We got these guidelines out. We're doing the webinar today. We want to answer questions. We tried to give a little time then, even before the application opens. And then we worked hard to try to take into account the holidays and things like that. So as if not to put it all and bundle it up. So we're optimistic you'll have the time needed to spend and prepare good, strong applications.
On that line, will applicants that are not awarded have to resubmit for every period?
Yes, if there is still funding available after the first round has concluded, they would need to reapply for another round.
Okay.
Yeah. That's right. I mentioned early on, I'm anticipating, right? Anticipating until, right, it actually is live and applications start to come in, that it is going to be a very competitive program. I mean, just the outreach and excitement around this program, it feels that way. But obviously we gotta wait and see what actually comes. The reality is, and I mentioned, we're focused on the availability of up to $10 million. And then Julie went through the specific grant amounts that can be applied for that are listed here on the website. Next year, next fiscal year, an additional $15 million becomes available. That will absolutely open up a totally new round where any applications that were awarded would need to be resubmitted. But yes, at the end of the day, right, 30 days will come. We'll review applications based within that, and then the opportunity, should we not have enough applications to make those awards and additional funds are available, we would roll into another period of 30 days.
We'll stay on the application track. Patrick, I think you mentioned this with your comments about not being first come, first serve. This question is, will applications submitted on January 16th have advantages to those applications that were submitted on January 15th?
Well, at the end of the day, January 16th at, what is that? Usually 5 o'clock is when they end. I suppose we can be hyper specific. We'll make sure to do that. As I mentioned, you can submit it December 16th at the 1 minute after it opens, or 1 minute before it closes. Those applications will be reviewed and scored together, considered.
We have another eligibility. Will gas infrastructure be included as well? I read that water sewer is covered.
The examples that we were given in the budget language does only include road improvements and water sewer connections. So that might be something that we need to confirm to see if it would go expand beyond that.
Let's get back to you in the FAQ document with that question.
A lot of questions around developers. Do they need to have them at time of application? Do they not?
I think it will be important. The stronger applications will be ones that have a fully baked, ready to go project with developers and commitments and pieces and parts in place. So Julie helped me out on if it's a hard and fast requirement that they have that. At the end of the day, they have to have that commitment that they're going to do 100+ units. So I would struggle to see the ability to have that level of commitment without a partnership in place that has that. But maybe that's one we can circle back with more specificity, Julie, unless you have something else to add at this point.
No, I think your explanation is pretty solid with that. And obviously that's our hope. We're interested in outcomes with this program. So I think stronger applications with a solid plan is going to definitely stand out.
Excellent. If an applicant applies for 2.5 million, but there isn't 2.5 million available, will the grant be reduced, or will the applicant not be awarded anything?
It's really going to depend on the applications we receive, right? And what is scored and reviewed and put forth recommendation at this point, and available funds. So it's hard to say how that, is there one more that potentially could partially be funded or something like that, what that could look like at this stage. The intention is to review an application in its totality for what the request is and be able to consider it as such.
Is it necessary for housing units to be completed during the grant timeframe?
No, that's not a requirement to have the fully up and ready to move in units completed.
We're getting quite a few questions around extra points for applications.
Mhm.
This one specific, do you get extra points if your housing project is within multiple REDD projects or districts? Kind of this variation on the previous form.
You really helped me out on that, but no, at the end of the day, that first stage she talked about is just qualifying to even be able to submit an application, right? You have to be within a 20-mile radius of a project.
And the only thing that I would add to that is that might be an opportunity for joint application. If, there's a chance of it kind of crossing over or whatever, but if because we do know there are concentrated areas of red eligible districts. So I think that depending on where you're applying from, there's a good chance that there could be more than one that is going to have more than one red district.
Certainly telling a narrative about the need for that 100 plus housing units, and frankly potentially more than 100, is an important part of this, right? Again, going back to the core of this is large economic development projects that, as a result, housing is an important part of the economic development conversation. So the more need there is, and being able to articulate that, I think, is an important part of any narrative you put together for an application for this program.
Staying on the pro housing policy foot, are all pro housing policies weighed the same? Is there a set number of points for each housing policy being implemented?
No, they're not. They're yes, they are weighed the same. We have the list that was provided within the budget language, but there is also the ability for applicants to provide other pro-housing policies. So it would be nearly impossible to kind of put a weighted preference on one over another. I think when we're reviewing this, we're going to look at most likely the quantity of pro-housing policies rather than anything else.
We've got time for a couple more. This is a good one. Will there be a match requirement on these grants?
Julie, correct me if I go wrong. I don't believe there is a match requirement, but with any good application, especially utilizing public funds, a stronger application certainly talks about, and showcases how you're able to use these funds to make so much more exciting things happen. That fair way? So not required, but certainly encouraged, and I think a possibility to make a very strong case for utilization of these funds.
Absolutely. And it also kind of demonstrates the local support that this project would receive. So Patrick is correct, not required, but definitely encouraged.
We've been getting quite a few questions also around future rounds. I would say we were focused on this funding round currently, and we will clearly communicate to this network future rounds of funding.
Yeah, we will. Right, we're focused on this application that opens on December 16th, right? And the guidelines and the map and everything that's posted is where the conversation is today. As the next year comes around and timelines and things like that are prepared, we'll absolutely be communicating out with all of those that have expressed interest at this point and would be eligible and interested in consideration as we move forward. This is a brand new program, right? We're going to learn things through this process that we absolutely anticipate. We're always trying to improve and get better at the work we do together.
Can this program support on-site community amenities such as daycare centers, playgrounds, parks, etc.?
So the question is, can the funding be used for those items?
Correct. Yep.
My initial,
Go back to that slide, the 4 buckets.
yeah. Carrie, I think it's a couple ahead. Maybe 2 more.
There we go.
There we go. So these are the eligible activities for the funding. So if your proposed project application can fall into one of those 4 categories, please apply for that. Otherwise, I would say probably not.
We got two more. We will have a development agreement in place by the application date with a developer for 225 units. Is this preferable in the program application?
Preferable or not, I think that's the type of information that could be included in an application that certainly articulates the goal and the opportunity that you're proposing these funds could help make possible.
I think it goes to your comments about complete and projects ready to go, Patrick. And then our last one, what about housing projects already underway? If the grants would be used to expedite construction and occupancy time for those units, are those units eligible for support?
Julie, I feel like at some point during your presentation you talked about a piece of this, but I could be wrong.
Not that part directly, but I think that if you are able to apply the funding to one of the eligible activities, even if it is in line with like adding to a capital stack or something, I think that that's fine.
But it certainly potentially be eligible. I think the idea of these funds is to make things possible that otherwise maybe aren't going to happen. And right, adding new housing. If you're already adding the housing and this project's already well underway, that's one thing. I understand though the narrative that was kind of laid out there of potentially being able to expedite and speed things along. I think those are opportunities with your application to highlight that. And as such, have applications considered as such. That's one we may follow up in the FAQ with more specificity on though.
That's all the questions we have.
Awesome. Well, hey,
Thank you.
yeah, no, thank you, Luke. I appreciate it. Julie, great job. And thank you everybody for joining us today. Really are excited for this. Absolutely anticipate, follow-up questions and things like that coming in. One of the things our intent is with this FAQ, right, is to, as we receive questions from all over the place, to get those and consolidate them into one place and then make sure we share them out so everybody's getting the same information to be able to consider that as such. So appreciate everybody's interest, opportunity. You see an email address in there to be able to submit additional questions. We'll take those in if they come and work to incorporate those into the FAQ. Obviously, staying outside of site-specific answers in an FAQ, as that's the reality of anything like that. These would be general answers and information about the program. But thank you again for your interest. There was a ton of interest in this program. We anticipate it. We're excited to get this one underway. We welcome the partnerships with you all around the state to make this possible. So thank you and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.